What a disaster to run into your lover at home, isn't it? It really is, isn't it? That's what I was saying to my wife, Karen, while watching a TV program on a widescreen just a week ago. And now I just got back from a business trip, and upon peeking into the bedroom closet of my house, saw my wife and her lover having an affair. This is almost the same as the news on TV the other day. On this particular day, my business trip ended earlier than I had expected. I got home a day before I was supposed to. The room was dark and empty at the time. I thought it was a little strange that a housewife to be out of the house at 8 p.m. Well, maybe my wife went out for drinks with friends or went home to her parents' house. I went into the bedroom, took off my suit and loosened my tie. I jumped straight into bed and felt the sensation of coming home for the first time in a long time. My home is the most comfortable place I've ever been, I thought to myself as I stretched out my arms and relaxed. Suddenly, I heard the front door open. I thought, my wife has come home. But then I heard a man's voice in addition to my wife's. Huh? Who could it be? Is it a father-in-law? But his voice is way too young for that. While I was thinking about that, the voice was getting closer and closer. I quickly hid in the closet. Then, the bedroom door opened and the man and my wife entered. I had never seen the man before. He looked to be in his late 30s, slender and tall, with a muscular body and short hair. He had an air of self-confidence about him. He was gentle with the opposite sex, but with the same sex, he had a fierce rivalry. He seemed to have the kind of personality that would push his point of view through. If he were in my office, he would be a pain in my ass in many ways. My wife is pampered by such a man with a cat-pawing voice. Then, the two of them took off their clothes and began to intertwine. I quietly took out my phone so that they wouldn't notice me and took a video of the scene from a gap in the closet. But still, both of them are so loud. Yeah, I see. The guy's name is Dan. The two of them spent the next 2 hours in the act. It was really hard to stay in the closet during that time. I had to stay in the same position because I wasn't allowed to make any noise. And I completely lost my timing to get in front of them. I kind of didn't want to appear in the middle of the act. I felt like I would be treated like some kind of pervert if I appeared the moment the act was over, because they would be asking if I had been watching the whole time. Why didn't you just go out of the front of the two of them and yell at them without thinking about it? Can I say, I'm the type of person who cares about every little thing. I'm somewhat serious and meticulous. When I came home a while ago, I ritually put my shoes in the shoebox, so the two of them started flirting with each other without knowing I had returned. While I was thinking about when I should leave, the intercom suddenly rang. My wife, with a suspicious look on her face, put on the clothes she had taken off and went to the front door. Then, I heard some voices arguing. From far away. You're here, Dan? Dan rushed out of the bedroom. I heard the voices of 3 of them, and the voices came closer and closer and then passed by. I went out of the closet and quietly opened the bedroom door to look in. I saw a strange woman in the living room in addition to my wife and the man in between. The woman seemed to be his wife. Please give Dan back to me. I don't want to leave him. I want to marry Dan. What? Marriage? Was she going to divorce me? Marriage? I thought you only married since you live in a big apartment, but you're not? No, I'm single. And then she smiles. In fact, I couldn't see her expression clearly because I only saw her side profile, but I got the impression from the tone of her voice that she was smiling. I'm pregnant with his child, she began. Whoa. What's going on? She's having an affair and getting pregnant? I can't believe it. Then, after a few moments of silence, my wife of the interloper started laughing out loud. What's so funny? Are you sure that's Dan's child? Of course it is. Dan is seedless. What? I leaned further out of the bedroom and looked towards the living room. I saw that my partner's face had turned pale. Karen, whose kid is that? You said you haven't been with your husband for 6 months. What? Husband? Didn't you say you were single earlier? The man between us muttered, "Oh," and looked at my wife with a look as if she had done something wrong. I saw my wife poke him with her elbow. Somehow, the interloper and my wife could also read the strategy. In other words, the man between the two of them and his wife were divorcing each other, concealing their affair, and were going to be together with a nonchalant look on their faces. If they divorced without the affair being exposed, they would not have to pay unnecessary alimony. But somehow his wife also found out about the affair. I guess he thought he could at least avoid being found out and reduce his alimony as much as possible. So she quickly lied and said she was single. What a cheating woman. But I guess I was too soft on her. I had no idea she didn't know he was sterile.
Will you explain what's really going on here? Are you really married? Are you single? Which is it?
Married. The next moment, my wife got up from the sofa and got down on her knees to the man's wife. I'm so sorry, but please, could you not mention this to my husband? I had only a fleeting moment of indecision with Dan. I didn't mean to ruin your relationship with your wife. The man between them looked at my wife with a look that said, Hey, that's not what you're talking about. His wife looked at my wife with a frown. You're a mess, aren't you? Just a few minutes ago, you said you were going to marry Dan without leaving him. Please don't tell my husband, I beg you. My wife apologized repeatedly to his wife. I leaned out the door almost halfway through the conversation. His wife was having a hard time because no matter what she said, my wife was just flat out apologizing. And eventually, his wife broke down and said, Okay, I won't tell your husband, so will you leave Dan? And I'll add that to your alimony for not telling me. Is that okay with you? My wife nodded her head yes. Thank you very much. I'm done with this.
Then we're done talking. Dan, let's go home.
The wife and the man got up and started to get ready to leave. I was almost in the hallway when I realized I was in trouble. I was in a hurry and pretended like I just got home. I appeared in front of the three of them saying, I'm back?
Oh, you? Why? I thought you were coming back home tomorrow.
Both the man and his wife froze with a shocked look on their faces. No, I finished my business trip early, so I came home a day early.
You just got home?
Yes, but more importantly, who's this? The three of us were obviously upset. Then the wife of the man opened her mouth. She said,
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Annie and I live near this apartment. Karen and I got to know each other as neighbors. I heard that you were away on a business trip and missed you for a few days. I was visiting her with my husband.
Then, as if in a hurry to follow suit, the interloper also greeted me. I'm sorry, I kind of startled you, didn't I? I'm Dan, Annie's husband. I know who you are. I know that my wife was shouting your name over and over again in a very loud voice in the bedroom a while ago. I guess they noticed my frowning, but the interloper and his wife said,
Well, we'll leave you now.
And they quickly left. But the wife of the married man is also quite a prick. If she knew that she could add alimony, she would gladly cooperate with my wife. Well, I have proof of the affair, so I'll just let her go. I looked at my wife sitting in the living room. Why did I marry such a lousy person? Suddenly, everything seemed ridiculous. My wife must have noticed my gaze.
I'm sorry, I invited my friends over without permission,
she apologized. You don't have to worry about that. You can call your friends anytime you want. Then my wife stood up and approached me.
I missed you so much.
She hugged me with a sweet voice. Then she looked up at me and smiled and said,
Hey, let's do it tonight?
She asked me. I felt goosebumps all over my body. This girl is trying to pretend that the baby in her belly is mine. What a person. Cunning and cowardly. Those words were perfect for my wife. I refused, saying, I'm tired today. Let me go to bed. And lay down on the sofa. She said,
Hey, you're going to sleep there? Why don't you sleep in the bedroom?
I'm in the mood to sleep over here today. My wife looked at me suspiciously, but I ignored her and closed my eyes. There's no way I can sleep in there. It was disgusting. The next day I woke up and got up from the couch. My wife was preparing breakfast as usual. I was horrified to see my wife looking as if nothing had happened. Are all women such good actors? It's kind of like I have a phobia of women. But more than that, I wondered whose child was in her belly. That was my first concern. Yesterday's interloper said he was seedless, so conceivably, my wife has another man. Who in the world is this other man? I was curious, so I decided to find out. A few days later, I got a few days off from work and told my wife I had to go on an urgent business trip. Then, before I left home, I set up small cameras in the bedroom, living room, and everywhere else. This should give me even more coverage. While staying in a budget hotel, I linked my phone to the hidden cameras to check the footage in real time. For a while, the footage was just of my wife doing her chores as usual. Around 19 o'clock at night, a man entered the house. It was a different man from the previous interloper. My wife and the man were talking happily about something, opening a bottle of wine and eating food prepared by my wife. And when they got into a good mood, they started to intertwine in the living room. Then they came to the sofa while making out. Hey, wait a minute. Now they're starting to do things on the couch? I'm gonna run out of places to sleep, aren't I? Then they started thrusting each other in a position you only see in an adult movie. And the next moment, their bodies separated. Somehow. My wife, who was on the edge of the sofa, lost her balance and fell to the floor in a dangerous position. The man was stunned and naked. I could see him shaking my wife as she lay on the floor and calling out to her repeatedly. I froze as I watched the video. This is a pretty bad situation, isn't it? Should I go home now and see what's going on? As I was thinking this, I saw the man calling somewhere. He probably called an ambulance. The man starts to get dressed, and he dressed my wife as well. My wife seems to be conscious, and I could see her moving, crawling on the floor. At any rate, I was relieved that she didn't seem to have fainted or anything. I had already taken enough video evidence, and I went out to dinner. A little while later, hello? Oh, thank God you answered. This is serious. Kanna's hurt real bad and she's on her way to the hospital. I know you're on a business trip, but can you come back right now? I understand. Can you tell me the name of the hospital? Of course, I wasn't on a business trip, so I could go to the hospital right away. Still, I ate dinner slowly and then headed for the hospital. When my in-laws found me, they told me to come quickly and lead me to a hospital room. My wife was asleep on a bed with her eyes closed. I knew this because I had seen the whole thing on video. I dared to ask my in-laws. Who called the ambulance? I asked. They said, the delivery guy was just coming to deliver a package. He rang the intercom, but there was no response, so he assumed no one was home. Suddenly, a loud thumping sound came from the room. He called out to her, "Are you alright?" And he said he heard a voice calling for an ambulance. And that's why he called an ambulance. I was impressed with the man's ability to tell a lie at a moment's notice. How is she doing? She's paralyzed on the left side of her body. Paralysis? The chance of recovery is very low, and she's pregnant, but she hasn't told him yet. Is that so? My father-in-law frowned at my answer. Is that so? What's with your cold attitude? How can you be so calm when your precious wife is in such a situation? My precious wife? She didn't seem to care about me. What do you mean? What do you mean? My in-laws were shouting. I took out my phone and showed them the video of the time when my wife was injured during the act with another man. It was caught on hidden camera. When my parents-in-law saw the video, they became silent. It was this interloper who called the ambulance, wasn't it? In other words, my wife injured herself during the affair. The in-laws were nodding in shock. But aren't you worried about your pregnant child? I'm ashamed to say that I haven't had sex with my wife for more than half a year. You mean it's not your child? Probably it's the child with the man in the video. Moreover, my wife was having an affair with another man. Well, that man was seedless, so he probably wasn't the father. My mother-in-law collapsed to her knees. My father-in-law apologized with a tearful face, saying, I'm sorry for my daughter. I'm sorry about your daughter's condition, but please know that you will not be spared a divorce over this matter. Let's communicate the rest of the way through a lawyer. With that, I left the hospital room. After that, I had a divorce with my wife through my lawyer. I filed for 3 million yen each in alimony from my ex-wife and her 2 boyfriends. My ex-wife was a housewife, so my in-laws must have paid the money on her behalf. I feel a little sorry for my parents-in-law who had such a stupid daughter. By the way, the man who got my ex-wife pregnant was a 20-year-old college student. He met my ex-wife on a matching app. My ex-wife was trying to keep him from destroying her future. I heard that my ex-wife tried to raise the baby as mine so as not to ruin his future. When I heard the story, I thought, are you kidding me? By the way, I heard that she lost contact with a college student. I heard that the ex-wife is having a lot of trouble with Miss Annie, who demanded more alimony, saying that since I, her ex-husband, found out about the affair, there is no need to increase the alimony. They're having quite the struggle. Women disputes are scary, aren't they? My ex-wife is paralyzed on the left side of her body. She is now a single mother who is unable to work. She is in a state of depression and despair over her life. However, she brought this all on herself. I want her to reflect on the fact that she has done as she pleased. I hope she will reflect on her actions. On the other hand, I got married a few years later to a junior colleague and we were blessed with a child. I should mention that this is in fact my child now. We bought a house and are spending happy days together as a family. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to my channel if you like. See you in the next video.